Hi, this is Seth David for the Sleater Group, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about how to model your payroll costs in Microsoft Excel. Join us at the Sleater Group. Call for information about memberships and resources at 888-484-5484. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at Sleater Group. Now stay tuned for the upcoming productivity tip. Hi, Seth David here for the Sleater Group, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about how to model your payroll costs in MS Excel and hopefully save you some money so you don't have to go buy some other tool because you have a program that's already installed on your computer most likely, especially if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper. I hope you have Microsoft Excel on your computer. And all it takes is a little patience, mostly in yourself, so that you can acquire the knowledge that's required, and it's not complicated. It's not. If I can understand it, probably you can understand it, because I'm not that smart. So all it takes is a little bit of patience so that you can learn something like what I'm about to show you, so you can do your own stuff. Plus, this is fun. This is the fun part of accounting and bookkeeping, is doing stuff like this. So let's take a look. I've laid out my spreadsheet here pretty much exactly in accordance with how I laid it out in the blog post. You've got your names. I left you space in case you want to do an hourly rate, and basically it builds out to an assumption about how much each person is getting paid each month, and then from there we can figure out how many employees we have working for us, because obviously if somebody's getting paid a salary, it means they're working for us. So now we know how to kind of count the employees. One thing is that's important, the way this is built, is there has to be a zero in any space for a line item for an employee where there's no one actually working, and you'll see why. So we're going to use a count formula, equals count, and you'll see that as I type that much of it, Excel brings up all the formulas that begin with count, and there are a number of count formulas that will help you count things. So the one we want to focus on today is the count if, because we want to just write a conditional statement basically that says count up the stuff that's in here if it doesn't equal 0. Right, which is why it's critically important to have a 0 there, because as I'll demonstrate, if I just take a 0 out and leave the cell blank, it's going to count it, because it's very literal here. If it's not 0, it counts it. Okay, I could do it by saying count it if it's greater than 0, but that could cause other complications. So I personally prefer to do it this way. So count if, the range I'm going to select with my mouse, just click and drag. So we just want that range. Again, we want to make sure we don't click this space here. I put this here on purpose to make sure nobody used it, and also to show where the range needs to be. Because again, if I include this and don't have a 0 in there, it'll get counted. Now I put in my condition. So my condition is, and I have to put this in quotes, it's just the way the formula works. You know, I don't make monkeys, I just train them. So does not equal 0. Okay, close quotes, close parentheses. That's my formula. Count up anything in this range that doesn't equal 0. That's essentially what this is saying. I hit enter. It gives me a result of 6. I always want to test these things to make sure that it's working. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That works. Let's delete 1 0 and make sure it goes to 7. Sure enough, it does. I can put my 0 back in, and now I can copy my formula all the way to the right. All right, so now it gives me a monthly count of how many employees I had working for me in that particular month. So now we're ready to do some of these other calculations. And let me just add a quick line here. Total other expenses related to payroll. Now, most of these are going to be easy. The Social Security Medicare tax is 7.65% of whatever the salaries were, right? That's the employer's share. Equals the total monthly salary right here times that number, whatever I put there. I like to have the flexibility, even though I know this isn't likely to change. Who knows? Next week they come out and say, guess what? It's now 8%, right? We need more money in the Social Security Medicare pool. So that's important, and I like having that set up so that I can have the flexibility to change it if and when I ever need to. The only thing now is I'm thinking that the next step is going to be that I want to copy this formula to the right, which means that in this cell reference, which is D22, I want to make sure the D doesn't update. Normally if I copy this, as I go to the right, D will update to E and F and so on, unless I put a $sign in front of it. That will make sure that it holds constant. Also, thinking ahead, I'm going to want to copy this down so I can get the workers' comp calculated very easily, which means that in the reference to the salary amount, line 16, as I copy down, needs to stay the same. I don't want it updating to 17 and so on. So I hit enter. Control C, highlight the whole range. I'm holding down the Shift key while I press my right arrow. Control V to paste. Now I've got the whole range in there. The numbers look right. Move it down one row. Control V to paste. And again, the numbers look pretty much right. So those parts are easy, right? It's just a simple matter of taking a salary times a percentage. The health insurance cost is where it gets tricky, and this is where I want to show you a formula that I've recently learned while I was doing my weekly accountants, bookkeepers, and business owners hangout. By the time you're seeing this, it'll probably be a few weeks past since we did that one, but I was using a similar model to illustrate this formula that I learned, and that's kind of where this is inspired or coming from. So what we're looking at here is there's always a probationary period with health insurance, right? You get hired today. If you stick around for 3 months, 90 days usually, you get your insurance. But still, I want to leave it flexible to be changed. And then the other assumption I have to figure is what's it cost per month per employee. So I'm just using $250 as a rough assumption. So we want to make it so that we write a formula that draws from these two assumptions rather than just saying, you know, take the count times 250. That's not really that valuable because then anytime something changes, if I change the cost per month or the probationary period, you know, I have to go rewrite the formula every time. So the idea is to, you know, limit or avoid the potential for having to do that. So how do we want to do this? First of all, we want to take the probationary period into account. So let's do that to start with, because I like to write the formulas sometimes as at the starting point where I know there's going to be an effect. And then I can, you know, sort of perfect it and then copy and paste it, you know, backwards and forwards however I need to. So assuming this is month 1, 1, 2, 3 is the first month where we would actually be providing benefits to a new employee based on the 3-month assumption. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a formula called offset, equals offset. And what this does is it lets me pick a starting point and say go X number of rows up or down and X number of columns right or left. So we have to start with the reference. Where are we starting from? We're starting from whatever the employee count would be, let's say, in the current month. So that's the first thing. That's the reference that it's asking for. The rows are 0 because I'm not going up or down. I'm going right and left, right? A column to the left is going backwards in time by 1. So comma and then negative, and this is where I use my reference here, which is the probationary period in terms of the number of months. Right? So before I do anything else, let me make sure that this offset formula is working correctly. Let me close it out, and I want to make sure that I'm picking up the 6 from this month. When I hit enter, I get a 6, but hey, theoretically that could be this month's 6, right? So I want to make sure it's working. Okay, first of all, do I need anything held constant while I'm doing this? The answer is yes, because it's referencing D24. So what I want to do so that I can copy this is I want to make sure that D stays constant. Right, so let's do that first. Then what I want to do to make sure I'm getting this 6 and not this 6 is let's change this, make it go to 7 by deleting a 0. And this doesn't change, so that gives me assurance that the formula is picking up the 6 from the right place. Now I can copy this back to the beginning all the way across because I wrote the formula well and I made sure I held the right thing constant. So now I know this works and we can test that and say, all right, what if I change it to a 1-month probationary period? Great, the first month nobody gets anything, the second month they start getting insurance. They have to be here for a full month before they get anything. Or if it's 3 months, you gotta be here for a whole 3 months before you get anything. Okay, now we have to factor in the next piece, and it's easy. At this point, it's just a matter of taking what we've already figured out, so we know we're getting the right employee count from 3 months back, and multiplying that by our cost per month per employee. And again, we want to make sure as I copy that across that it picks up the right reference. So I need to hold that E constant so that when I copy it to the right, it doesn't update to F and G and H and so on. So when I hit enter, nothing happens there because I had no employees to pay health insurance for. But sure enough, as I copy and paste this across now, we will get updated calculations, which of course reflect the cost of insurance per employee per month. And again, just to illustrate, the beauty of this is now if it turns out it's really $275 a month, I just have to change it in one place and everything else updates from there. Whenever I do these things, it reminds me of a funny story, and I'll leave you with this. I was working for the government when I first got out of college as an auditor for a company that worked by contract with the Healthcare Financing Administration. We were basically auditing Medicare cost reports for home health agencies. And I worked in an office where, keep in mind, this was already a few years ago. I don't want to date myself too badly. I'm not really that old anyway, though. Anyway, they were doing their work papers using Microsoft Word and using tapes from a 10 key. So what happens on a 10 key when you screw up a number and you have a long list on that tape that was on there? You have to redo the whole thing. So I came in there and I said, well, that's stupid. Let me do it in Excel. This way, if I have a keying error, I don't have to redo the whole thing. I just change the one number I got wrong. And the calculation updates from there. Therein lies the beauty of working with Microsoft Excel. You can set things up like this so that I can change these little assumptions and update the calculations from there, saving yourself countless hours of time. And because you're doing it in Excel, you have the flexibility to build this however you want it. Anyway, as always, I hope you get a lot out of this. If you have any questions, my email is seth.david@sleater.com. And the one thing that I didn't cover, because I'm sort of low on time here, I don't want to go on too long, is what happens, how do we account for the possibility that an employee might get fired, right? Maybe Doug fires me in August. That's why I zeroed these out. So if that happens, we have to build something into this formula that looks at last month versus this month for all the line items and says if there was a pay amount last month but 0 this month, then we have to subtract 1 from the number of employees that we're paying health insurance for. Of course, then you could throw in another monkey wrench or whatever you call it in terms of the fact that you might have to carry it for another 6 months under COBRA. But anyway, let's try not to overcomplicate these things too much. But if you'd like to see me do a follow-up on this, only if you're interested will I do it, where I can show you how to build on this formula and take that into account. Again, email me, or better yet, post your comments below or around or on the site or wherever you can. Let me know what you think, what you got out of this, and what you'd like to see me cover going forward. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.